I'm ready to add a new layer of detail into the keyframes that I've crafted, and I'm focusing on the keyframe where we're pulling the arrow back and we need to bend the bow. This is what I have at the moment. I've traveled over the keyframe that's on frame 58. Here's the keyframe before on 57, and then of course we're going to pull the arrow back. Now, in addition to pulling the arrow back, we also need to bend and bow the arms of the bow and the string. So a new challenge for us, one that I think we can easily overcome by incorporating a new tool into the mix called the bend tool, and it's a fun one. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure that I'm locking down the arrow. So I'm going to lock the arrow, okay, and I want to ensure that I'm only working on the bow. So I'm also going to lock down the string. So this is going to happen on the keyframe, and it's a really neat system. The first thing that we need to do is to select some points. So I'm going to go into edit mode and change my selection state over into vertices. There we go. Now defaults to select everything, which is not what I want. I'm going to use the box selection tool, so the B key, and grab all the verts at the top. I didn't grab all the ones I'm looking for. I also want all of these guys in here. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and continue adding until I get down to right here at that corner. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Now, the bend tool is a really easy tool to use. I like it very much. You can find it over in our toolbar. It's immediately below the radius tool. It's this guy right here. And the bend tool is, as you would imagine, going to bend things. But it's bending it from a weird location. Let me show you. Why is it over in the center of the screen? What's the dealio with that? Well, we now have to make an adjustment to the 3D cursor. The bend tool is always going to use the location of the 3D cursor to determine its bend kind of center point, if you will. Now, the 3D cursor is a wonderful tool, and many of the tools in Blender access and leverage the location of the 3D cursor to determine where a certain operation is going to begin or end. It's always on, and the influence is always active, even though we can turn its visibility on and off. For the most part, we're going to keep it's off. Let me show you where we can find it. Let me hit undo to get rid of that weird bend. At the top of my screen, in this pull-down menu right here, these are going to show all of our viewport overlays. And check it out. We have an option here called 3D cursor, and this is what we want to turn on. The 3D cursor looks like a little target, and it's this guy. And on my screen, let me zoom in so you can see it. On my screen, it's kind of chilling in the middle of our interface, this little target. If we didn't have a white background, it would actually have a checkered red and white circle going around the intersection of that little cross. Now, with it on, if I was to fire off the bend tool, once again, check it out. That little dotted line is traveling to the bend tool, or to the 3D cursor. So what we need to do is change the location of our 3D cursor so that it's a little bit closer to where we want it to bend, which is in the middle of the bow handle. Now, luckily for us, it's really easy to do this. If we go back into our toolbar, the second tool down looks maybe a little familiar now that we have an understanding of the icon of our 3D cursor. This guy right here is this tool allows us to change the location of our 3D cursor. Now, I'm going to get really super specific. I'm going to put it right there. All you need to do is left click, and then voila, magically, it's been placed in the middle of our bow handle. If we were to activate the bend tool now, check it out. Now we're going to bend our bow around that point. See how the dotted line is now coming at the location of the 3D cursor? Cool, right? I want to keep the 3D cursor in its current location and maybe just slightly massage my selection a little bit. I think I accidentally missed a vert here. Let me grab it and reactivate the bend tool. Now, when you're working with the bend tool, be very mindful of where your cursor is, your mouse cursor is in relationship to the 3D cursor. You're going to get a different effect if your cursor is really, notice that my mouse cursor is right next to the 3D cursor. See how it's a really intense bend, okay? Versus if my mouse cursor was way up here at the tip, it's going to be a real soft bend, okay? So I think I'm going to go for something like that. Pretty cool. Digging it. That's awesome. Let's do the exact same thing on the bottom side. Yeah, I might go in and fix these real fast. I'll make it as angular. That's a great thing about working in Blender. We can easily change things. Let's go back into our box selection tool. I'm going to grab these points at the bottom of my bow's bottom part of its arm. One of these days, I'll actually learn what the parts and pieces of a bow are called. I'm sure it's something more fancy than just arm, but it'll work for the time being. And once again, since our 3D cursor was already in the middle of that handle, we don't need to move it again. But now I'm just going to reactivate the bend tool here. You can also play around with the angle a little bit. See how I move it closer in and out to the 3D cursor? We have a very different effect. Yeah, kind of neat. Yeah, just find something you're happy with. And then if you need to make some small adjustments, you certainly can. I'm going to go back to the box selection tool by hitting the W key, and then immediately fire off the grab tool and just get rid of that hard angle. Yeah, I'm liking that. Let's go back into stroke selection mode. Yeah, and that's going to work just fine. It got a little bit big, but I can fix that with just some small little vertex editing here in a minute. And generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with that. Here it is, and then boink. Yeah, I think that's going to look pretty cool. And that'll give me a really great opportunity to fire my arrow from my little bow.